2023 Kingston Selectmen's Meeting. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item we have is under appointments. So Kyle McManus, our building inspector, is going to bring some issues to the table. I'm going to turn this portion of the meeting over to the vice chair, as I am one of the topics of discussion for this item.
Good evening, Todd. Good evening. Can you kind of update the board on the issues with the permits and things for Mr. Bastrop?
So the issue that the building department has in inspections in general is that we really don't have a means by which to inspect and approve or deny something like this. The way that inspection services works is we work off of...
Yeah. Can I give a little background here?
Can we do a preface so that people know what we're...
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think I'd like to do it because I was one of the only board members that was still here at the time. About a year ago, we implemented an amnesty program to update our tax files and get permits issued for work that had been done without permits. And at the time, and we sent out a notice in the June tax bill announcing a 30-day amnesty period till the end of June, and anyone wishing to update their tax file and or get a building permit retroactive could come in to do so without any penalties. I believe I have that correct. It probably wasn't as well thought out as it should have been, but we were trying to, again, get things cleaned up a little bit and eliminate some problems. And now we have one of the issues was, I'll let now Carl, you go right ahead.
So the issue with it from an inspection services department standpoint is we don't have a means by which to inspect. The way that we work is that when you file a permit, the date of the permit is the date that of code compliance that you need to be held to. So the code changes every few years. They make an amendment to the code. Right now we're in the IBC 2019 with the New Hampshire adoptions. What that means is that anything that I'm expected to inspect has to be compliant to IBC 2019. Anything that was built before that obviously gets grandfathered in and brought along. If we can't see it, we can't inspect it. What you're asking us to do effectively is see through walls, go back in time, remember the code under which we're not sure when something was built or wasn't built. And you're asking that the homeowner, in this case, come forward with all of this information, put it on the plate, and now we're going to inspect it and allow for it. Straight up, I don't have a means to do that. So what I had asked when this was brought to the table for all inspection services is for the select board to be very specific with what you want us to do, because I can't do the job that you're asking me to do. Nor can plumbing or gas or electric. We have no means by which to go back, look through walls, make sure that before things were drywalled, that they were properly secured, and the codes have changed. So the only way that we could do this is to go to current code. And now that is going to open a completely contradictory can of worms to what you have offered the town residents in an amnesty.
So,
But there's only one individual that we're aware of that has a conflict with that. Because
There's only one application that I have.
That's correct, because everything else, whatever was brought forward last June of 2022.
I don't know.
Is settled.
Yeah.
One was not settled, and the homeowner was told it was all set.
So
That's
then it
the
was brought to my table to say, you know, can you go out and inspect it and bring the plumbing and electrical inspector with you? So then I had a conversation with them and said, bring me up to speed, what are we looking at here? And so then they notified me and said, yeah, we don't really know how to do what they're asking.
So Ellie, you're saying that there were others under this amnesty program that have been settled?
That's correct. There wasn't a ton, but there were a number that were settled last June. And I don't think they had the same complexity of this particular situation.
If it were something, for example, if it was an exterior deck, okay? And I could walk out and I could look at the deck and I can look under the deck and I can look at a few things, I can see the components. And if today I have heartburn over something, okay, and you built a deck and it's a matter of, you know, for example, in a deck, recently we had to start adding lateral ties to it. So if I had heartburn over it and I said, listen, I'm not gonna sign off on this until you install lateral ties. It's about $14 a tie and 10 minutes to install. Nobody's gonna really, you know, nobody's really gonna do anything with that. They're gonna install the ties and then I'm gonna feel good and they're gonna feel good and they're gonna be code compliant today.
So I understand that, and I also understand the issue about you and the other inspectors not being able to sign off on something you can't see. Clearly that. And then you've got the complexity of the changing codes, perhaps, as another issue, but somehow or other, this one homeowner, I think, needs to have something in the file, at least showing that these things were done. Something from the building inspector saying they've been done. They were done how many years ago, they've been in place. Not signing off essentially on what you can't see, but at least verifying that the work was done, that it's there, that it exists.
Okay.
Just so there's some documentation of the end product being there. I don't know if that's something that can be done, but I think that there needs to be something for the homeowner and for the town showing that the work is done.
I think that with this particular issue, for instance, if there's mini splits there that have to have potentially a plumber or an electrical inspector originally to do it, and then a final. So if you guys collectively went out as suggested, and the plumber, the people looked at that particular thing as it's installed, like doing a final inspection, as it's installed, for everything you can see there, it was, you don't know what's in the wall, but physically it's there and it's installed properly.
Okay.
And be able to say, or the same with the fire department, they go out because of the third floor thing and just smoke detectors there and the windows are the right size to get out, etc. To verify that those things are there, installed properly or not, and then they'll have to correct them like the deck.
Based on what code?
Pardon me?
Based on what code? What iteration of the code would you like us to review them on?
Well, the code was what, up to date in 2019?
Right now,
Right
building
now.
is 2019, I believe that electrical is 2022.
Okay, well,
And plumbing is somewhere.
I mean, the work was done a while ago, but it all got brought to fruition in 2022, so
The paperwork was brought to fruition. My guess is that the work was done before 2019 or before. See, that's what's different. The work had been done before 2022.
Correct.
And over a
So
period
the
of time.
work may have been code compliant then, and at which point now, today, it would be grandfathered in. If you put a mini split in your house 15 years ago, that same mini split may not be compliant today. It may not have the appropriate energy requirements and the disconnects may be different. Okay? I'm using that as an example. I don't know that it is any different from 20 years ago when you put a mini split in. I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
Okay? But in cases like that, window sizes have changed, window accesses have changed. Smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detector requirements have changed. So do we inspect these things based on today? In which case, you're going to be putting a homeowner in a situation where it is no longer an amnesty situation. You're putting a homeowner in a situation where you're going to bring your old home up to compliance on the things that I can see. Now with that, it goes a step It only gets more confusing and more convoluted, because what about energy code? Right? If you now have to meet current energy code. So what if the home doesn't? Because I have to take the home as a whole. Or am I just taking pieces? Is it each piece individually, or do I look at the whole thing and say after a certain kind of, visual percentage, then we say, listen, the whole building has to be brought up to code, okay? You're doing so much work that we have to bring the building up to code. Well, if the total amount of the work that they did, one piece at a time, equals an amount that I would look at and I would say, well, that really should make the whole building be brought up to code. Do I do that today? I mean, that's
My particular opinion, that would not,
seems
it's so-
out of spirit with
Exactly, you
Right,
wouldn't.
that's correct.
Now, if you found something that was radically out of code, depending again on what year we use, I would guess that we should, in my opinion, the board will decide, but, at least prior to 2019, if that's when the code that is there.
Well, there was 9, there was 15, there was 19. I mean, it changes every few years.
Right.
Building code does. Electrical pretty much changes almost annually. Electrical and fire.
And I'm assuming that these various things that were done happened over a period of years and probably are subject, if one were to compare it to a
Might
code,
be different year codes.
could be a whole series of codes that
And
apply.
it would be, I'm not going to say it would be impossible, but the amount of effort to go back to review codes, I literally would have to find a set of 2019 books. I threw them out. So I'd have to find a set of 2019 books. What you're asking for is a lot on a part-time department as a whole.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah.
So
That's
when-
what, go ahead.
for last year when they were instituting this, do we know what philosophy they took? How were they,
We wanted to update the tax cards and make sure that we had the sheds on.
right?
Or roofs, or decks, to increase the value of the property, which would
Sure.
generate some tax
But
revenue.
they were inspecting, right? Were they inspecting or not
No,
inspecting?
no, we know that there are a lot of things in town that were done individually
Sure.
and independently of permits, we know that.
Right.
And so in the spirit of trying to give people a chance to correct some of those deficiencies, and by deficiencies I mean permits, paying money for permits. A lot of people don't even know about driveway permits. We update the regulations every spring, but most people see, recommended or not recommended, and vote accordingly. They don't necessarily read everything unless there was a rooster. It's the only one I know.
But during this I'm trying to understand, during this amnesty period, inspections were not done.
Inspections were
You
done you
So
come
they
in-
were, but, so then what code were they thinking about when they were doing the inspections last time? It's
I
the same
can't answer
question,
that,
right?
But it's not the point of this here, because they would have inspected based on what they could see at the time,
So,
2022. What they could
Whatever
see at the
requires
time.
some context, because my situation obviously is what makes it so complicated. So, Chris Bashoff, 49 Danville Road. I just want to state that all of this occurred prior to me being on the Board of Selectmen. As a citizen of the town, I opened up my tax bill back in 2022. I saw this permanent amnesty program. Some of the stuff as a young homeowner, people saying, you don't need permits for this, that, or the other. Took an opportunity, said, okay, well now what happens if my house burns down? Are they going to say they're not covering something because something was not properly permitted? So I decided to participate in this town-sponsored amnesty program. And I think the questions that you're asking may be applicable, I think, if this was done properly. And I think the problem is that when I engaged in this program, the people that were in charge of it did not handle it. And this is, listen, this has opened up the town to tremendous liability. And that's why, but me as a homeowner, I want to protect my home as well. The problem is I came in and I sat down with the then chairman of the Board of Selectmen and the building inspector at that time. I said, hey, I'm interested in participating in this permanent amnesty program. Here are the things that I think would apply. I took photos, I brought everything in, and I sat down with the two of them, and they said, okay, let's go through all this. Okay, now I said, so what's the process moving forward? Does everyone come over and inspect this, or is it a paperwork thing you guys got? We'll get back to you and let you know what is required. Several weeks later, I'm at the town hall registering a vehicle. I'm approached by one of these individuals, the chairman of the board, who hands me the entire file of stuff that I have applied for into the Permanency Amnesty program, and an official representative of the town for a town-sponsored program says, you're all set, everything's good to go. So here I am as a homeowner thinking that everything has been done properly, I've participated in the town-sponsored program, and that my property file is up to date. Now, come this winter, I'm looking at doing a project at my house, and so I go look at my property file, and it was in the process of digitizing, and I'm like, oh, these files they haven't been scanned yet, and they're not in there, and they don't exist. Nobody did anything with that file that I sat down with. It was just handed back to me, and as a homeowner, I was told I was good to go. And that individual, told other members of the board that my property file was all set. So the town is in a spot right now because they took action in their official capacity that puts them at liability, but as a homeowner, I'm just looking to protect my home. So now if something does happen and these haven't been signed off on as a permit after me participating in this program, is my insurance company gonna say, no, we're not covering this or this coming out?
Right.
Because I'm not just gonna sit there and say, oh, I'm okay with that. I'm going to come to the town and say, I followed your rules in your program, who's paying to replace my house? And like I said, this will probably only become a problem if something catastrophic ever happens. And hopefully nothing else happens, but I just, so I brought it back to the board's attention. I want everyone to know that, once I realized that those things were never updated in the property file, I just wanted to bring forward to get anything documented and resolved in the best way that we can.
Could I suggest we send this to council we need to put something in Mr. Bashar's file to know that he did try to comply and we were not able to accommodate that, for whatever reason.
Kyle, knowing the history now that you have there and you have the information in front of you, what do you think is a reasonable way to handle it, that the town's somewhat protected and the homeowner's somewhat protected? If you have an idea,
I really don't. It's really way outside of what I do. As a 30-year contractor and a 35-minute building inspector, it's one of those things that I haven't run into anything like this. We've been talking about it, trying to figure out what the appropriate course of action would be. And really the only thing that I can come to is that I'm 100% certain it's inappropriate for inspection services to do anything without being directed, specifically what we need to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what I had asked Susan about, was that you need to bring something back to the board and let them know that I need specific direction. We as a department are happy to comply with whatever direction you provide, but it has to be specific because there's really nothing that we can do without specificity. Right now, everything that we do, it's black and white, it's in the code book, it's not open to interpretation, it just is. And quite honestly, we like it that way. It makes our lives easier.
Yeah, I think we all understand the fact that at the same time we need to resolve the problem one way or the other.
Right.
That's why I would suggest that we send it to council and have a chance to think about it and decide what we want to do. That's the best interest of both the town and Mr. Bashar.
Yes, we can send a note to council, and then I think we have to sit down and come up with a list of, or we've got to give them a specific order.
Or something in the file folder, his property file folder, that said he tried to comply and we were negligent, actually.
Right, so we have to try to somehow resolve the problem so that there's something in the file for future use for him in the building department.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue running it by council, and it might be the best approach at this point, just so we've got some standing and some grounding on whatever decision we make. But I still think, as I said earlier, that if there's a way that inspection services can at least verify that things have been done without signing off on an inspection and a disclaimer saying that, you know, this was done prior, without permits, we're not verifying what was done, what codes it meets, but the fact that it's done and that it complied with the directive or the amnesty program at the time that the board had, and that goes in the file, and
That should take care of it.
now, I mean, maybe.
We're not gonna tear open walls
No.
and pull out the
And-
insulation,
and-
anything like that.
And I'm not suggesting that the inspectors put their credentials on the line saying that, yeah, this has been done properly, because clearly you can't do that.
Right.
You can't see what's not in front of you. But the homeowner, I think, needs closure of this.
Yes.
And, for the reasons that he stated.
And I would obviously recuse myself from any legal counsel information that you receive on this matter, so if you want to put that on the record, Susan.
So why don't we do that? Why don't we send it out to legal? And Susan, giving the background and the history of it, get their idea of what might be the best way to handle it. And then, you know, once we get that information, we can come up with a plan. And, you know, we
Should we authorize you as vice chair to speak with council?
can do that, yeah. I can do that.
Does that make sense, ladies and gentlemen?
I think it automatically goes to.
But he's
But
vice
sure,
chair.
but yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So we're gonna authorize Chuck to check with legal counsel how to proceed with this matter. How's that sound?
I assume that's a motion.
Yes, so moved.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same? None?
In the conversation with council, do you want to say to them what I was proposing to
Yeah,
see
I
if
think
they,
the
how they
recommendation
feel about that?
sure is a
If
good
the
idea.
board is okay with that? I mean, it seems to be a pretty simple solution if they're okay with it. And from a homeowner's perspective, is that?
Yeah, I understand it's a delicate balance. I know the town's gonna, you know, have to come up.
But if that were the end result, would that be satisfactory for you?
Until my house burns down and then the insurance company says they're not paying for it.
Yep.
Because I'm not gonna say that I'll just stand by and be okay at that point.
The assessor at least is updated.
Yes, and I invited the assessor to come over to, you know, I'm probably the only person in town that asked the assessor to come over and increase my property taxes.
Okay, that's good.
Is that good, Kyle? Is that what you want? Get
Yep,
back
yeah,
to
I mean, effectively, we're gonna wait direction.
Yep.
Is what I heard. If I do think of here of something similar, I absolutely will bring it to your guys'
I
attention.
mean, if you have a conversation with one of the other inspectors in town, and,
Yeah,
you know, whenever
no.
you guys get together, you call and say, hey, I got this issue, you know, what would you
I-
think you would do in your town?
I will certainly, you know, bring any information that I can get back to you guys, for sure.
Good,
Hopefully by the time we meet in 2 weeks, we'll have an answer.
yes. Good,
Okay?
thank you.
All right. There is one other question. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask right now, or if you want to put that in writing.
Is it not relevant to?
No, it's not my.
Completely
thing.
different
It's-
to his.
Well, he's here.
I think that's, you brought it to my attention, I think that's gonna be best brought up at the planning board meeting next Tuesday. I think that may be the area where I need to bring that up. But let me talk with you about it more, and then I'll probably send something to Susan to distribute to the board to review,
Okay,
so we can talk about it.
so as far as that particular permit, just let him know it's on hold.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, fabulous rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, public comment number 1. Do we have anyone for the first public comment?
On this topic, as another taxpayer in town, I never
Could
saw
you please get in front of the microphone, Leslie? Thank you.
Leslie Hume, 21 New Boston Road. With the amnesty program, I never saw it as the town agreeing to inspect your property if you came forward. I think what the property owner got in exchange for disclosure was that you would not be fined if we found out that you had done something improper. You needed to get your permits, and I don't think it should be I don't think they'd find the town was liable if someone acted without permits, and there was a consequence for that. The town, in exchange for disclosure, the town was agreeing that you would not be fined for not following the permitting process. That's how I understood the amnesty was gonna work. So like, you can't inspect the walls. But it's good for the town to know, yes, there's a deck there now, yes, there's a third bedroom, or whatever they did.
Any other public comment? All right, we're gonna close first public comment. Committee liaison reports, we'll start off with Lori. Nothing?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Conservation, we're meeting Thursday night, Wednesday night, I think. Budget committee, there's nothing new there. The highway is, I think one of the main things that Phil's working on is he's got a couple of other employees out with injuries, and John is still out. So he's short some people, and he's working diligently to find some part-time help that'll be able to fill in the grass cutting and that thing, maybe some high school kids. Other than that, firehouse, as far as the construction of the firehouse, still working on finalizing on the bond money for the station, finalizing the amount of money that will be turned back to the town, to be returned to the town. They're still processing some invoices on some maintenance agreements and things, but that should be settled fairly soon. And the fire department itself, I don't have anything new on the fire department.
Okay. For me, I know the police department's been going well. I know the chief's here for a RFP opening that we're going to be doing a little bit later in the meeting. Other than that, the planning board, some of the more popular agenda items have been getting continued. So we don't really have any big updates on those. I think there'll be some more updates on a couple of site plans and stuff once we have the meeting next Tuesday.
Let's see, recreation, I haven't had any conversations with Paul recently, but I know that he's working to set up a bunch of activities. Camp has started for the summer, and apparently it's going very well. It's fully enrolled, I believe, and he's also, Susan, did he work on the musical program, the ukulele program with you? That's coming up on 23rd of July.
Yep, it's been on Facebook already.
Yeah.
And it's out here on the plains.
Right, it's closest to this building. I wasn't sure if there's that little patch that's across Depot, or whatever that road is. Anyway, it's close to the
It's in
town.
front of the fire station.
Parking will be here.
Parking here and just walk across the street.
Yeah, across the street from
And
here.
it's like 4 or 4:30?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Yep.
Heritage Commission did not meet this month. Historic District Commission met, but nothing particular to report except that they're still working on setting up a joint meeting with the planning board to discuss possible adjustments to the ordinance, and that's still in process. And the museum committee, they're here tonight, and we're going to be talking to them. So enough said about that for now. That's it for me.
I don't really have anything, but the benefit committee will meet next week. And based on whether we approve those 2 public persons for the wage salary committee, that will get going pretty shortly.
All right, that does it for committee liaison reports. We'll go into old business. The first item we have is the facilities use permit for the Museum Heritage Day event. It's right here.
Ruth Albert,
Yeah.
1 Lamprey Road, president of the Kingston Museum.
Leslie Hume, 21 New Boston Road, president of the Friends of the Kingston Museum.
So it seems like we have the event application permit in front of us. I think it's been signed off on by the chief of police, the road agent, and the fire chief. I think the item that we're looking to discuss this evening is you're requesting a waiver from the
the services to be provided by the police and the fire department,
Yes. And the application fee.
and the application fee. Okay. Do you want to touch on why you're requesting this?
Well, I think we fall into that group that is raising money. Our events are to raise money for the support of the Kingston Historical Museum, a town organization. All of our resources, all of our time go to support that mission. I don't see the benefit of charging a fundraising organization these types of fees that come back. The money raised goes right back to the group, that a town organization. Someone said we're not sanctioned. The museum is sanctioned by the taxpayers, and we're trying to raise money that's not taxpayer money. We're trying to find money within the community and our surrounding areas so that we don't ask for additional money. So when we pay out money for these services, it's just less that we can provide back in the service of the museum.
And this year, because everybody wants a cut of the action, we're gonna be going way in the hole. But we've already sent out all the flyers, we've sent out all the emails and web postings to the antique car people. So we're kind of stuck with having to go forward. Otherwise, we'll be down on the plains that a lot of people don't show up till the day of. And the car people aren't gonna, they're just gonna show up. So we'll spend the whole morning, even if we don't have it, greeting everybody that's expecting to show up and we're not gonna have it. So we've decided to go forward, even though we know we're gonna lose money because we have to pay all of these fees.
Essentially, these expenses make this a losing event. This is our major, the August weekend is our major fundraising event for the museum, and it has been since 1970. We make somewhere between $800 to $1,200. The police and fire expenses come to about $1,500.
I guess my individual concerns on this is because, and I get it, you advocate for something that the town is involved in, but it's not money that's coming to the town general fund, it's going to a nonprofit organization, and you're stating that you're trying not to expend taxpayer money, but unless the police and fire departments have budgeted for these events, it's coming out of taxpayer money that they may not have budgeted for these extracurricular events. And one of the topics that I was going to be speaking with all the department heads throughout town is that if they're going to be, as the town increases certain things that we're doing and they think they're going to have events that require life safety issues, they should either be budgeting for that in their budgets, or the budget committee could request that the police and fire departments get numbers for all those services to accommodate that. But I mean,
that's absolutely a great point. Whether it was Chief Graham or Chief Johnson, we said, Leslie, I don't know if we're having one event on the plains or 50. How do I plan for that? How do I budget for that? I think that's an excellent point. It just puts us behind the 8 ball in 2023, trying to proceed with some plans to raise money by facing these expenses. Something that, again, has been going on for 52 years.
well, and I think it's because you used to be commingled with Kingston days.
No, we started this event in 1970. Way before Kingston days. It's been the annual fundraiser since then for the museum. Yeah, Kingston Days piggyback. This is the anniversary weekend. That's the other thing, is we don't want to lose the anniversary weekend. I don't know what Kingston Days will do in terms of their calendar for next year's event, which I hope we'll have. I think they're going to have a great event in September. But it has had some complications. This weather is a major complication. But I have to say, we've got to find ways to support organizations like ours, the Friends groups, for volunteers who give hundreds and hundreds of hours to these organizations, and they're giving more time, not only to run them and to keep them going, to keep them open, but to raise, and then to take on the hated thing that most people hate to do, fundraising, raising money for things. And you're just breaking the hearts of people who have given their heart to the activity.
No, and I understand that, but you know, when the police department provides officers there, the fire department, they can't, even if they wanted to, they can't donate their time to be there for free because we'd be violating labor law. They can't, so the chief has to pay these people. And where in the budget is that coming out of if it wasn't prepared for?
Well, I think it comes out of the detail bucket.
I mean, I thought the detail was for like equipment, cruisers, things of that nature. That's, I guess my issue with it is that we're subsidizing a nonprofit. And it's not through like a human services nonprofit grant funding mechanism that's budgeted for by the town.
A nonprofit who 100% of its proceeds go back to a town organization. We're not even a nonprofit that gives money, some to Kingston, some to Newton, some to this group or that group. Everything goes back into the Kingston Museum. It's 100% goes back to the museum, not other beneficiaries. There's no other beneficiary but the museum.
But you guys did you guys think about increasing your fees for the participants to cover these costs?
Well, this year, with the disruption of the move to Kingston Days, and I don't want to criticize the committee because they're a good group, we faced a lot of resistance from people who were very angry, and so we didn't want to change. We've charged $25 for the last few years. It was $20 before that, but we didn't want to add another thing to the mixture. And up until the beginning of June, it was my understanding from the fire department that the station was there right across the street. I had no requirements for them, so that was a really new expense that I didn't know of. And I think Graham mentioned it the last time. He hadn't planned to charge us, but in thinking about the weather and the heat and things, he thought he changed his mind about that based on some things that he reconsidered. So up until June 6th or whatever the day it was, really didn't
counting on having to pay the fire department.
Yeah, and we took out the beer garden. We reduced our event in October, if we can go forward with that, to 1 day rather than 2 days. We're having a rain day in August on the hopes that people will sign up, hoping that if 1 day is rainy, they can not lose their money and come Sunday. You know, we're trying to figure out a way to make things work.
I did this back in the old days, when I just went out on the plains with no porta potty, no policeman, no fire person, and ran the flea market. Just before that, and then we got involved with Kingston Days because they decided to do it the same weekend as we have always done it, because it is the celebration week of the founding of Kingston.
It's our happy day.
Yes. And so then having the split this year, we just weren't expecting so much, and I wasn't expecting it from the fire department because he had said first no, and then I don't know if somebody got to him and said you gotta charge them or what, but anyways, now we're getting charged.
Before I bring the chiefs up, any of the board members, any of the board members sort of chime in, but I think it'd be helpful to maybe get some input from the fire chief and the police chief.
Thank you. Excuse me. Fire Chief Graham Conan. So I spoke with Leslie Friday, I believe, on the phone. So, and I do sympathize. My requirements don't start until I sign that piece of paper. And that's what had happened in June, was I signed that piece of paper and said, because August, the first weekend last year, we had 7 heat emergencies on the plains for Kingston Days. So that's taxing when we only have 1 ambulance in the house. And we talked about the Kingston Fire Association. So the Fire Association, through fundraising, has put over $15,000 to $20,000 into the new fire station. So that was also a group that's inclusive of supporting. And I talked to a few board members that I said to you, if they waive this fee for you, then they are kind of setting a precedent and should waive it for every nonprofit in the future. So,
well, I think we ought to, if you don't waive it for us, I think there ought to be a big discussion about why not and what the policy should be. Do we address it through the budgetary process? Do we address it through a policy change that the townspeople adopt? Maybe it's a combination of both. But in honesty, I called the fire department 3 months in a row to double check as I was planning and spoke with Kelly. No requirements, no requirements. The last time I spoke with the office, she said, let me check again. And you had, I would like you to designate in your permit that the fire department will be the evacuation site. And then when we went, put everything in the paperwork, sign it as presented, that's when we got a change. So it was a big change, big money for us, and that's why we're unprepared for it. If you had told me months ago that, hey, it's gonna be $50 an hour for 2 people dedicated on the planes, maybe I would have had reconsideration about announcing it. Maybe we would do all the things very differently knowing, but I have to rely on your office when you tell me, and planning and working with you, that this is how I wanna do things. We rely on that. And announcing our event, and planning our event, pricing our event, all the considerations.
Have you gone to the porta potty company to ask them for free porta potties?
Actually, we did ask Pete, and he said he doesn't have a relationship, he has a relationship with Kingston Days. And he has such a high demand for his equipment. But he might do one for us in the future. He's given away porta potties to other events. But he can't make all his porta potties free for community events that he supports.
And I feel like the board and myself has the same feeling about details. You know, when we had the Brew Fest 3 weeks ago, we only made, in the past 2 years, 3 years, we've made $10,000 to $15,000 profit every year. This past one, a month ago, we made $1,200. So not because we were getting charged, but we always have at least 2, if not more, detail officers that we pay for. So, you know, it's kind of worked into our budget. And
well, certainly, when we talked about a beer garden, Joel said, Leslie, no matter what, I'm gonna require you to have someone at a beer garden. And we said, we got it, and we actually planned for that. Yeah, so we had planned for that. We've always done our own traffic. When we've done the flea market, we've always done our own traffic, we've always
You're
done
not
our
allowed
own
to do traffic,
barriers.
that's the difference. You're not allowed to do traffic. You're
Well,
not
we've been doing it for,
That doesn't mean it was right, you're wrong, you can't do
okay,
it.
It's just
And I
moving
think
a
we talked about
barricade
it.
so somebody can get by.
We're setting barricades up, when you say traffic, what do you?
We're
what do you
talking
mean?
about
moving the
Okay,
barricades.
Okay, yeah, we did discuss that, I thought you meant, they'll stop the
Oh,
traffic.
no.
All right, that's the way it was
We've
presented.
never even had anybody in our area doing that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, my concern is, you mentioned take it out of the detail account, okay? I totally disagree with that, and I'll tell you why. A year ago, tomorrow, my balance in the detail account was $14,000 negative, okay? So throughout the year, we've been working hard, building that back up, and we have a considerable amount of money in there now. That money is an emergency detail account to purchase things for the PD in case of emergencies. For instance, 2 years ago, I had 2 cruisers smashed up, okay? I have to buy another cruiser. Cruisers are very hard to get to right now. I have enough, almost enough to buy 1 cruiser, okay? That money in the detail account, I had to buy brand new firearms for all my officers. That's 15 firearms at about $1,000 a piece. That money came out of the emergency detail account, has no effect on the taxpayers. The garage at the PD that we just built, a lot of the trim and a lot of the construction work, the materials were paid out of that. Okay, so I'm not going to allow somebody to just come in and use my detail account for their own benefit or non-profit. We talked 3 weeks ago and everything was good. You know, we worked everything out. We were here in the meeting.
We actually didn't agree to anything. I was waiting for your response of what you
And
were
I
gonna
get,
require.
but I was here and I mentioned what my requirements were gonna be. I emailed them to you.
Yes, you did.
And then you put them in your ops plan, so to speak. Okay, so they are there.
Yes.
But I can't take the money out of my detail account, and I don't have it in my overtime budget. Okay, so unfortunately, you didn't plan appropriately. You should have put it in your budget. You should have maybe charged more or something to help you out. Now, I did cut back on the $20 cruiser fee.
Yes,
I'm gonna
you
waive
did.
that.
Yes.
Okay, we were gonna have parking down at the state park, and I was gonna allow you to have Dan, because Dan's a certified traffic guy. I had no problem with him. I trust Dan.
Right.
Okay, he'd do a good job. So he was gonna volunteer his time. Normally I would have 2 officers. I did 1. So I think I'm bending over backwards Or
I
you-
understand,
Okay.
you're saying you don't have it in your budget,
Correct,
you don't have a fund for that.
correct.
How do you plan with Kingston Days? Do you
Kingston
charge-
Days is a town event, and I eat that, and I'm willing to.
And you eat it in a line item in your budget? Is
No,
it
it's in my
total-
detail account,
It's in your detail.
correct. And I don't let my officers work for free, okay, they don't work for free.
He's saying there's a labor law that says they can't volunteer their time as a police officer.
Well, that's true,
what I said, you
but
can't-
at the
you
same
can't let
time,
them
I
work
just
for
said, they cannot work for free.
Uh-huh.
So, that's where we're at, I'm squeezing by with one officer, I'm taking a major chance. I will have my patrol officers in the area more often than not that day.
Mm-hmm.
And they're already on patrol, so I don't have to pay them extra, so it won't cost you extra.
You have one cruiser?
I have two. So I'm gonna try to, keep them kind of in that area in case something does go wrong. And, like I said, in 3 weeks ago, if it gets out of control, I will call another officer out, and that's where we're at right now.
Chief, can I ask you a question? Do you have a policy for an outside detail? Will you order your officers in to work an outside vendor detail if nobody voluntarily signs up for it?
There would be a mandatory, I would do a mandatory overtime at that point. If I need it, yes.
Well, I mean, traditionally, wouldn't you just page it out to another town to see if they were available?
I could, but you don't want that, because
Well, I
I'm
was gonna
probably
say-
one of the most inexpensive detail departments out there.
Because if it got to that point, say
You can
say
pay double.
Plastow comes over, which their detail rate on the weekends is over $100 an hour
It's $110.
to the officer.
State police is
Which is-
105.
And then,
Yeah.
who's gonna, if the fees were waived, who's paying a check to that? Is the police department cutting a check to another police department, or is the town cutting a check to that
No,
police department?
Plastow would bill the person with the event. It wouldn't even come to
Well,
me.
but if they've been waived, they're expecting the fee to be waived.
They're not gonna waive their fee.
Correct.
They're not waiving their fee.
That's another uncertainty, as you sign these permits and you make an arrangement with the police department, and say it's $66 or $73. If he can't find someone, then it's another additional cost on top of that.
But I have no control over that.
I know you don't, I'm just saying from a,
But in this situation, I would have probably mandatory somebody to come out on overtime, which is a little bit cheaper. Right? I mean, I'm trying everything to help you out.
oh, no, I get
And it's
it,
like,
I'm not saying you
but
don't.
I have certain things I have to do,
Right,
so that's where we're at with that.
So, let me just, you're correct in the fact is that with all this coming up, we're going to have to write a new policy. We're going to have a policy in the future for what we're gonna have required for coverage for, programs on the planet, whether they're a town program or a private program, et cetera, because at the moment, there's really nothing in writing that says we have to, we don't have to, whatever it is, so it's kind of an exception to the rule. So we need to do that, but in light of that, is it possible for this year to have the town itself pay for the two details, what is it, on $1,300 or $1,300 and change, so depending on how many hours. How many hours are you planning to have that?
well, we start early in the morning, I mean, the event is 8 to 3, but cars will be coming early to set up, and, they're same-day vendors, there's no overnight stuff like that,
So you-
So be an hour before and an hour after.
well, we've we budgeted for 10 hours
Okay.
for the event for both of you, because who knows? I mean, the same risk occurs at both times, traffic and personnel.
So you're thinking of 10 hours rather than 8 hours or something?
Yeah.
Money-wise, which is more closer to your figure of 1,500 than mine, 1,300. So would it be possible to, whatever that particular amount is, and obviously the board would have to want to do something like this, is to be able to pay it from, I call it excess and deficiency account, but the town covered the cost for this year due to the fact that you guys had a problem, you didn't have figures all the time, you didn't budget enough, and Ruth and I have had the conversation about not charging these people enough money. I mean, it's crazy,
But what do we do with Kingston Days? What do we do if the Friends of the Library want to do something we don't help them with now? We're opening up a big can of worms here. I feel like I'm caught between a rock and a hard place.
You wanna support us,
I
Well,
wanna support you.
I wanna
yes,
support a
do,
lot of
but-
things
But
also.
you're making it very hard for me to do that.
But-
I have to support my police and fire first.
When we're looking at a couple $100,000 deficiency in our budget already, and we're telling departments that this isn't a year where if you have extra money, you can go out and buy stuff, because things that were missed by previous boards and multi-year contracts and all these other issues that we're having, we're trying to make sure that we can keep the trash getting picked up. There is no extra money anywhere. We're telling everyone to hold on to everything they have unless it's an absolute necessity in this year's budget, and I get it. It's, it's complicated with the changing dates of other events that happen that, you weren't counting on. I can't authorize us to subsidize a nonprofit that's outside of the budgeted process where there's funds that were set up for something like that.
I feel that we've gone through this experience, and my personal feeling is I think we need to stay at the Kingston days, and if they stay in September, if they'll have us, we'll do something on our own to celebrate the first weekend of August, because it is the celebration of the founding of Kingston, which was the purpose of the thing. That's why we had it that weekend. So we'll still do something. Maybe we'll do it at the museum, something to recognize it. And then maybe because of policy,
Yeah, we're
we'll
gonna
just have to
advocate,
go.
I don't know what you'll decide tonight, but this is, 11 years of really hard work in trying to raise $1,000. It makes it really hard to try to get people to support us if we can't get the town to support us.
But it seems like these vendors are getting, a sweetheart deal, like.
What's the sweetheart deal? You're selling used products for yard sale type items.
Yeah.
And we don't have any big vendors. We don't have a carnival or anything. We have the car show. It's $5 for them to be in the car show. It's not, the people who, in this market that have supported us for 50 years, these flea marketers have helped us raise $1,000 or so every year, and it's made a world of difference to our organization and the things we've been able to do. Even that little bit of money makes a big difference to us.
And I don't think
You've
the
gone
town would
beyond
like
the
if
flea
we-
market. We're gonna do the flea market. Now you're doing a car show. Are they giving you any money?
There is no car show route. It is an open invitation, because we were flooded with complaints and anger. And so we're just trying to cover the thing. If I had just a flea market, I would still need the same fire and police. I've been over that conversation. If we just did the flea market, it wouldn't change. Taking the beer garden out changed something. I did not need an additional police officer to do that. We took it out.
And having the cars hopefully will help offset some of the money
But you're
that
not
we don't
getting any
get from the
revenue
flea
from the
market.
cars.
There's a small revenue.
It's a small little, you have to give them trophies or whatever. It's $5 a piece, but here's the thing. There were a group of people who supported Kingston Days for a long, long time, and they were upset, and this is their weekend. And we didn't think we had the bandwidth, but we got Heidi Corson down at the garden shop, said, listen, I've done one before. Let me step in and see if I can pull one off for you guys to keep this thing going. If Kingston Days come back, maybe we can smooth some waters back at this August weekend, and everyone will be happy, and they'll just come back and enjoy the weekend as they always have for all these years. They've been supporting Kingston Days, raising money for Kingston Days. Not much, but still, they were a big feature of that weekend, and things changed. So
I didn't think any of their proceeds went to Kingston Days. I thought it went to a local Boy Scout troop.
no, some of the money went to a Boy Scout troop. At least $500 every year went to Kingston Days. The motorcycle group, I don't think any money went to Kingston Days. I think that went to a veterans charity. But again, I think that's fabulous that groups who are raising money for good causes got to be there and promote their event.
And I do too, but you're asking us to pick and choose which nonprofit organizations the town is going to fund.
I'm not asking you to pick and choose. I'm just asking you, we have a policy that encourages groups to support town organizations, to raise money for town organizations, and support the volunteers who are trying to do that with all their own personal time and effort. So
Leslie, I feel your anguish, I really do. Sure. A policy, though, would probably state that if you're gonna hold an event, you have to be able to fund it. Right. So my question is, when you spoke with
No, when I started speaking with the fire department, there were no requirements to do that, because there was a process with local vicinity and there were no issues. With Joel, and I spoke to the secretary, and said, if he's thinking about what he'll require for you, you have to tell him what you're doing, you tell him the cost, and I talked to her on the phone, and said, you would think about it. So then we had a meeting, we put it on that, we got the bill on the phone, we had a map, showing out everything that we were doing. But no issues from the fire department, Joe was thinking about it. And I knew we told her a year ago, we would have a people. I understand that, but did you then say that you're gonna ask for the review? No, you had all these meetings, and we put this on this application because you guys decide what the policy is. I called Graham on Thursday or something, he called me on Friday, I said, I just wanna make sure that you read the application, that we are asking for you guys to waive it. The case is behind us, and you had Joel, you know, spoke to Joel about that, about cost, in our meeting with him, that we might ask for that. So, you mentioned October, and you said you're changing it from 2 weeks to 1 week. Were you aware of the need for that event as well, or was it just inside of this event? No, we planned that event based on no fire department fees for the South Street. They were requiring a police officer for vehicle. That's for the October event, not for the. For both of them. Why would we want to do, they're both, we feel that they're just a big scale, event. So you weren't, you didn't think it was too great. That's what I'm trying to understand. Listen, you read our ordinances, what are our fees? You read this application, it doesn't tell you. There is a facility issue, it doesn't tell you what the fees should be for police officer or highway. This is just the paycheck. That you have to do.
And I will say, the state RSA,
So I guess, just in the future, and I told you last meeting that we had to do that, that maybe it was my ignorance, but I was 99% sure that the last couple times, the first couple times we talked to Kelly, it was just gonna be a 3 month. And I apologize, but in the future, if you're gonna meet with the other 2 major departments in Kingston, probably in good place. If you met with Joel and Phil on the claims, but didn't meet with me, then maybe that's where the miscommunication.
Well, when I called those departments, and I was doing it, I just needed to be, everybody knows. I didn't get it. Usually, well, you know, I'm taking notes and I'm gonna work on it, but I don't think I'm gonna resolve that tonight.
When you were doing the budget, the only item on the agenda was special events, was Kingston. And that budget was done a year ago.
So next month, we're gonna start the budget process.
Yes, but then the August of 2022.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
It didn't involve us in 2021. You're asking us to do the budget, which was accordingly. But you're asking us to give over $1,000 to $300.
but also keep in mind, when that goes to the committee, they may say no, we're not going to put money on cost. I think it's that.
So let me ask you, if this application says the Kingston Historical Museum and the plan of the historical
conversation on Friday. So if you're gonna allow the museum to put in the museum's budget, the town taxpayer budget, detail officers for their nonprofit, non-town sanctioned, then I expect to be able to do the same thing with the fire department for the Brew Fest.
I
So
think
just-
anyone can ask for it. I think it's gonna be whether or not the budget committee supports it.
Yep.
Because then and then if it's the budget committee supports it,
Unfortunately, we're out of time, and you know this just by your
Yeah.
last conversation, once we set a precedent,
oh yeah.
it's a
That's why you have
slippery slope.
policies, and I think there's a lot of policy stuff to work on.
Sure.
I think,
But I can tell you, my default, if we're gonna have a policy that is black and white that we have to follow, my policy would be, if you're a nonprofit organization, you need to be able to provide all the resources that are required, especially when it comes to life safety issues that may be required by the town. I would never put into a policy that, yes, we're gonna just cover this.
Okay, so I think you owe us then the policy that says if you expect 200 people on the planes, this is what we'll require. If you are expecting 1,000 people, this is what's required. And you have a permit fee for a building permit. What's the fee that I can count on when I look at your policy for these charges, so I can plan for it?
But there's certain things that you can't pigeonhole, like 1,000 people for one particular type of event may require very different life safety services than 1,000 people for a different type of event. Let's say we go back to the day where Aerosmith is playing at the fairgrounds. I think the life safety services that are going to be required for an event, that is going to be very different than 1,000 people at a flea market.
We agree,
Yes.
but you have to have a policy that gives some guidance and some framework to it.
we're working on it.
Doesn't solve the problem right now, though. because
No, it
there is
doesn't.
policy.
It doesn't.
You look like you want to say something.
Well, I mean, there's a lot that I'd like to say, and I'm getting the sense that some of the planning for this happened prior to knowing what actual costs were going to be, and so I feel sensitive to that. I also think that there's a difference, even though it's a nonprofit to support a town entity, and I think there's a difference between that and any nonprofit that might come to town wanting to put on an event. I think there's a difference, I do.
We're just talking about nonprofits that do something to benefit the town of Kingston. Not that somebody comes along.
That's what I'm saying.
Does something for Blackstone or does something for Exeter or something.
No. Trust me, I'm trying to speak on your behalf. Don't derail me. So I do think there's a difference there. You know, in this particular case, if the costs are, if you set the program up with certain certain fees based on what you thought the costs were going to be, and those costs are now different, that's a tough spot, and I understand that if an organization is going to put something on, they need to put it on in such a way that they are able to afford it. They have to cover their costs and hopefully make some extra that you can then put back into the museum,
Right.
which is the objective of the whole thing. I mean, on one hand, I'm trying to find a way to support what Chuck was suggesting, but I also understand that by doing so, it's setting a precedent, and that's also a tough spot for the town.
Well, let me ask this. If, let's say the board denies your request to have the fees waived,
Yeah.
which is what the sense that I'm getting,
Yes.
you still have to have that personnel participate. What if you don't raise enough money? Do you have a budget? What's gonna happen if you hold the event, you only get $800?
Right.
We still have the obligation to pay the police and
We have the
fire.
resources to
Yeah,
pay
we
the
have the
bills.
resources.
Yes, we have the resources to pay the bill.
You have resources to pay the bill?
Yes, we do.
And not out
But
of the
again,
town
we-
budget.
If it's $1,500 for the police and our wishy-washy, maybe we're gonna lose $2,000, $1,500 of our loss. we have slow registration right now, we're about half for our flea market, we usually, because I think there's rain. And because
People are waiting till the last minute.
and maybe we'll have more
whether-
people, we could have a pretty consistent crowd. But out of the 2,000 we would lose, Ally, 1,500 would be accounted for by the police and fire.
The other side of the equation, we were wrestling, obviously, we're very conflicted.
I agree.
And you're not the same as the Kingston Days Committee. You can tell me what you want, I know you're raising money for a town building, but there's a couple of differences. Number one, the town hasn't voted to endorse support of the museum fully and have it as a line item in the budget. You know what I'm saying? Because
You mean the Friends
we
group?
thought, wait, let me finish. When the new library on Library Lane was passed, it won by what, 20 votes, 10 votes? It was or 30 maybe, it was a very small margin. But the intent was to not use the old library.
That was actually not the intent,
Let
but
me finish, please. The intent in the people's mind was we weren't going to be putting money into an old building, which that's not been the case. We've put a lot of money in that old building. But the Kingston Days has been endorsed by the town year after year. A fund is set up, proceeds of excess revenue from each subsequent years goes into that budget in the town budget, and it starts as a base for the next year. They have a budget of about $25,000. If the museum is going to go forward with their own events, even if they're not, you still need an endorsement from the town. You really do. The town needs to say, yep, we wanted support. Not to say that they haven't supported because they haven't did the roof. I mean, it's been a lot of things we spent money on in there.
yes, and when we took over the Nichols Library, the Friends matched, the town voted to support hiring an archivist.
Yes.
For $14,000, and the Friends matched $7,000 of that 14, it was matching funds, and we try to do that, it's one of our goals, is try to match the 6 we get with a fundraising effort of $6,000, trying to make 6,000 to match it. So we have ambitious goals, maybe we shouldn't fundraise at all. And
no, I
you
don't,
know,
and
it's
I
just
don't think,
crazy.
I don't think
It's
that's
just
the answer. I
crazy.
just think, there are stuff that the townspeople vote on for warrant articles that I don't necessarily agree with, but at least those funds have been carved out and voted on. So like when those projects happen, but at no point in the budget process did the budget committee or the select board at the time support funds to waive fees for nonprofit organizations that are not directly, I get it. I think there is a difference between a nonprofit that does directly support a town entity, but now a townsperson sees, well, that was never budgeted in there, that was never voted on, we never wanted to subsidize this event. Well, now I'm a nonprofit and I want to go do something else, and so I want the town to waive that because I'm a town citizen. And
well, you could define those parameters of where that would be.
Can I ask the two chiefs if what we're down to for personnel now is what you feel is the minimum that we should have for the event?
I'm at rock bottom with it. Rock bottom. I should have 2, but I'm gonna.
And you're down to 1.
I'm down to 1, but I'll have patrol cars in the area
Understood.
more often than not. So.
Didn't you lower the rate as well, Joel?
What's that?
Didn't you lower the rate? Oh, no.
I waived the cruiser fee, which is $20 an hour.
Right.
So there's another $200 saved.
If you guys had just
But
waited, you
grab
could have
on.
waited 1 more month. We were at 66, but you guys voted a few weeks ago to raise his fees. So now we're at 70. Now we're at 73.
I also gave you a heads up. I gave you a heads up.
Yeah, he did tell me that could happen. I'm just making a joke. I'm sorry.
That's not appropriate.
Graham,
You're shooting yourself.
you're at 1.
I'm at 2, because the state of New Hampshire requires 2 licenses to transport.
For an ambulance, he needed an ambulance.
But he lowered his rates, didn't you? He went from 76 down to 50, is that
Correct.
correct? So he took off a third of the price. Anyways,
I just wanted to get a sense for where we were with personnel, and are we at a reasonable number?
because the reason Kingston Days were one of the main reasons it moved was because of the heat. And you're still gonna have that issue. Still, more than likely, given
And
that.
We got the
I was-
diehards.
I was trying to support it as much as I could by lowering it
I
to
get you.
50, so.
I get you.
Well, it's been a learning curve.
I have a suspicion that, even with the small amount that you're charging for the cars, I know that you probably know, car people come out for pretty much, certainly if it's good weather, there's gonna be
Well,
more
that's
of
the
them.
thing, yeah.
But Kingston Days attracted a lot of cars, 300 plus.
Yeah, I think it could be, like I said, I don't not want to support your organization.
So I'm saying that I don't know what you're expecting for vehicles, but if you're only thinking that you're gonna get a handful of cars, I think you're wrong there, and you might be generating a lot more revenue from that piece than you think.
Well, it's very possible, but if you're on any of
Yeah, they do.
the car shows, the car club things, we're still in the,
$5 a car times a couple hundred cars, you can do the math.
I can do the math, but I'm telling you, we don't get the $5 a car. That's what I'm.
It does.
Well,
It goes to the friends that then transfers it to the museum. Because it's not a club, it's not a car club.
the car club's not keeping any of the money, it's an independent, open invitation, there's no car club.
Can you explain for the benefit of my colleague here and the rest of us, if I bring my car and I pay $5, where does that money go?
We go to the Friends of the Kingston Historical Museum. Yes. There's no car club involved in this.
It's different than the Kingston
It's
Days.
it's street.
That's the difference. That's-
Different, yeah, not that organization.
No, it's very
Somebody
different.
else's.
It's not anybody, it's just Heidi having done one before, and us putting all the feelers out to try to help, again, a lot of angry people, and we said, oh, don't be angry, come on back to Kingston.
Yeah, because they were very happy when they left last year, yeah. Unfortunately.
I stand corrected, only because I'm thinking of two different.
Well, I will say, I think we just need to take some action.
Yeah, let's take a vote.
I know nobody
So you
likes
make
me.
a motion to
I know nobody likes being the bad guy, I'll be the bad guy. I'll make a motion to approve the application for facilities use, but not waive the fees required for the life safety details required by the police and fire department.
And I'll second it. You guys are mad at me all the time anyways.
And that include, you'll waive the fee, the application fee though?
What's the application fee?
Like
How much is
$100?
that?
I think we're just in the same boat. How can we split hairs on waiving the? I can't say
see
I'm
how
gonna,
we're-
I can't say I'm gonna waive that, not waive that for you because you're this, but then I'm gonna waive this for you when it's the same
We
entity.
definitely need a policy. No matter what.
How much is the application fee?
How much is
I
it,
think it's
Susan?
$100.
For nonprofit Kingston.
It's $100, I'll pay the application fee. Okay?
Donation,
A donation, I'll make a
Thank you very
$100
much.
donation to pay for that application.
thank you very much, thank you.
So for discussion, since the motions,
Yeah, so the motion on the table is to approve the facilities application use and not waive the required permit fees, the required permit fee nor the detail fees required for the police and fire department. And then mentioned in the discussion, Electra Alessio has offered to make a donation to the Friends to help them cover the permit application fee. Any further discussion?
so I just, as a final comment, is that I think that it's unfortunate, and I tried to come up with a way that maybe it could work, and it's unfortunate that between the fees you get and not getting information, or not having a lot of stuff set ahead of time, so that you made a budget, you got some fees, and then find out that these fees are coming in, etc., that obviously for the future, you need to now know, or everybody, especially if we get a policy relevant to it, know what the fees are. But I think personally, I think we've got to support what the safety issues are. If that's what they decide that they want to have, that's what they've got to have. So we tried to work around it. At least majority-wise hasn't worked. So I just wanted to say that I just think the bottom line is we have to support what they've recommended, and we've worked on them to get them down a little bit, get the fees down, get to one guy, etc. But I think it is what it is now.
I'm gonna move the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Painfully, I'm gonna vote yes. badly about it, but I promise you that when I bring my car, you're gonna get a lot more.
Every little bit helps.
You'll get an extra bonus.
I usually bring multiple vehicles to these, so you'll be getting money from me too.
Okay, very good, thank you. Thank you all very
You
much.
gotta throw in more than $5.
Yeah. So next item under old business is the letter to Unitil. This is reference the herbicide use. So what we want to do is I'd like to read the letter just for some context. Some folks know that the herbicide use, we were notified of it by Unitil. It came before the board when we looked at the town ordinances. At the time, the utility company could not indicate or verify with us that they were meeting the requirements of the ordinance, in particular the amount of chemical that would be used, because within the aquifer it had to be less than 25 gallons, I believe. So we told them that we had to deny their use of it, and we sent them to the zoning board of adjustment. They have come back and stated that they can now, from the documentation, that they are going to abide, that they can meet the restrictions within the aquifer protection overlay. But we were also presented with some other documentation and case law indicating that there are certain prohibitions on communities creating ordinances to prevent utilities from applying these types of things in rights of way. So I think in good spirit, it sounds like Unitil is still agreeing that we will meet the requirements of the ordinance anyway, which I think is a benefit. So what I'll do is, I know there were some folks here that were here specifically for this, so I want to read the letter that we're gonna have the board vote on authorizing me to sign. So this would go to Unitil Forestry, 1 McGuire Street, Concord, New Hampshire. Attention, Chris Moltrup, Manager, Forestry Operations, reference herbicide application in Kingston, New Hampshire right away. Dear Mr. Moltrup, per our letter of April 11th, 2023, the Kingston Select Board denied your request to apply herbicide in the power lines right of way, citing Kingston's ordinance, which states the following as a prohibited use in the aquifer protection zone, citing Article 201.4(E)(18). Use or generation of hazardous materials greater than the small quantity generators or greater than 25 gallons of regulated substances, except where permitted in association with 14 and 17 above. Article sections E14 and E17 refer to gas stations and manufacturing. Consequently, you applied for relief to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, where your appeal of an administrative decision was denied. However, at the June 26, 2023 Select Board meeting, ZBA Chair Peter Coffin informed us that Unitil has affirmed that the amount of herbicides they plan to use in the Kingston right-of-way will not exceed the maximum amount allowed in the APF of aquifer protection of 25 gallons. For this reason, the Select Board has agreed that there is no reason for the town to disallow the herbicide application and has reversed the earlier decision based on the information gained during the ZBA process. We will require an updated notice of herbicide application that includes the information that you will not be exceeding the 25-gallon cap imposed by our ordinance. I assume you will work with your attorneys on the noticing time frame required, given that you had met the advanced notice requirement before the treatment was put on hold. Thank you for your patience and cooperation while the Select Board and ZBA did their due diligence to protect the interests of the town on behalf of the Kingston Select Board. So if the board doesn't have any further discussion, I think it would be appropriate for us to have a motion to authorize me to sign this letter and have it sent to Unitil Forestry. So,
second.
any public comment? This isn't really a public comment operation of the Select Board at this point. This isn't a public hearing on this. There is public comment number 2 where you can offer some, even if we've already addressed the issue, if you'd like to offer some input on it. But as a point of further discussion, if they're meeting the terms of the ordinance and can show that they are, we have no mechanism to prevent them from doing this.
I agree with that, but I think some of the comments that I don't
What's the board's flavor here?
A brief comment would be all right.
Okay, I'll open it up for public comment. We are going to limit it to 3 minutes. If that would be acceptable for everyone, please come up.
Dana Akers, I live at 16 Rhinefest Lane. The most,
Can't hear you.
Yeah.
First of all, you're gonna need to speak up clearly into the mic. And
well,
you're gonna
the
need
most
to
interesting thing I've heard so far is that Aerosmith played at the,
Stop, please. Your name and address.
Name and address
oh,
again.
Dana Akers,
Okay.
16 Rhinefest Lane in Kingston. I did attend both of the zoning board meetings on this topic, and Unitil did admit in the last time they did this, they used 100 gallons. And then Peter Broderick came up with the idea that maybe they should measure the non-water portion and only do the chemical concentrate or something and exclude water, but water's pretty much included everything. The ordinance clearly says the total amount of mixture, so I hope that that's not what they're saying, is that they're still gonna spray 100 gallons, but count it as less. If they are indeed cutting down the amount that they need from 100 gallons to 25, I would agree with you that your hands are tied.
And I would say that part of this letter is they have to re-notify us and furnish that information at that time. I will say other information that came up during legal counsel was that there was case law cited that towns can actually not create ordinances that prevent or put restrictions on utilities from applying herbicides in right of way, which could be even more problematic for the town.
Yeah, that was my other comment regarding that. Is I had a conversation with Peter Coffin outside the meeting, and he explained that same thing to me, that the Unitil attorneys had brought that up to him. But he said, I presume he's using the same legal counsel you are, advised him that that's not the case here because the Kingston ordinance was written before the state law, and in which case it does not apply here.
Well, we have advice from the New Hampshire Municipal Association indicating that what Chris stated is in fact true. Now, could you find another attorney to argue that? I suppose, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm not getting any legal advice. I mean, it seems you're getting different legal advice than the zoning board did, and they're the ones that investigated all this and denied the appeal. I just want to make sure you're all on the same page before you make a decision. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Lorraine Massioli. We own 26 Old Coach Road, which is in the right-of-way property. It's also adjacent to the old Superfund site. My comments are to piggyback on Mr. Akers' comments about the 25 gallons. I also went to both meetings. I spoke at length at both of those meetings. I'm not sure if you've watched the footage on it. It was hard to hear in those meetings. But the 25 gallons that they're going to spread, I agree, is also the mixture. And we were surprised that it was brought up. What's the combination? Is it 25 gallons of chemical? And so in looking at these things more closely, especially where our property is adjacent to the Superfund site that now has a federal remedy in place, I'm concerned that when do we stop the chemical process, regardless of what you're discussing about what advice you've already been given by a particular council, where the New Hampshire Municipal Association might have it in the state's interest. At what point is it going to get to the federal level again is kind of where I'm at, because I don't want to see us needing to provide bottled water for everybody in our town as we continue to spray chemicals in our town, where we've already had to get to the federal level to fix things. And now here we are going to endorse spraying more chemicals in our town. At some point, this has to stop. And I'm asking you to reconsider signing the letter, and I'm also asking you to reconsider that we stop spraying chemicals in our town. Thank you.
Any other public comment? So we have a motion on the table, and just as a matter of point of the further discussion before we vote on it, this vote isn't a vote, at least of mine, to endorse the spraying of chemicals. It's based off of legal advice due to current state law, case law, and the federal law that we've been advised of by legal counsel.
And just for the record, my preference would be to use mechanical means for clearing vegetation, whether it be animals or humans or whatever. But however, I mean, that would be my preference, but our ordinances don't specify that, and it does allow for chemical application up to a certain limit, and that's what Unitil is proposing, so.
Any further discussion? I'll take the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. We'll go ahead and sign that.
And when they renotice, we'll take a look at that and make sure that, in fact, what they supply us does comply.
Yep. So, yeah.
They did send a letter to Peter Coffin that I got today, so I think you've got a copy in here.
Okay. The next old business item is the wage salary committee. So we were looking for 2 residents. We only had 2 interested. So I asked that Susan provide me with their email addresses. So I'm going to be sending out, I just wanted to talk to the board before, I am going to be sending out a notice to all the department heads, the budget committee, all the members that are a part of that. I'm going to try and set up a meeting as quickly as possible. I'm going to ask them what their preferences. I know a lot of people are on the clock during the day, especially the department heads, but I'll send out if they have a preference of meeting during the daytime or the evenings. I can be pretty flexible with my schedule. I know your schedule is pretty flexible as well, but I'm hoping to get our first meeting for next week. I'd like to just get something, because I think we need to just set some direction to task people out to start doing information gathering, because I think we need to do a lot of information gathering first and then come back and dissect it, how that wage salary committee. And, obviously we had a lot of changes that were happening and we couldn't get this implemented sooner, and I really was hoping to have almost a report done by July so we could have it ready for the budget committee, but we'll do the best we can to get the data. So any of the members that are on the wage salary committee, come to that first meeting with anything you have, whether it's, I've already started pulling information from the New Hampshire Municipal Association that some folks provided me with. I've started looking through collective bargaining agreements for certain types of jobs classifications that are similar towns of similar size. And one thing we just always need to make sure of is, even if it's a town of a similar size, geography matters, because we live in the most expensive county in the state to live, with cost of living issues. So I just wanted to update everyone on that, but I will be sending out, trying to get the first meeting together next week. New business, we have the police prosecutor bids opening.
There are 2.
First one, it looks like it's from Ventura Law, addressed to the Kingston Select Board, and it outlines qualifications, certifications, and is there a bid? Price? That's what I'm looking for. Pro bono? This would be fantastic. It is, oh yeah, you're right, oh, there we go. It has a contracted price requirement of $45,000 annually. So, if anyone wants to take.
Do they have a retainer of 45 grand, is that what you said?
That's your annual cost to do all the police, whatever's outlined in there for police prosecution.
Contract price requirement, $45,000.
And we have the second one from the law office of Heather Aworski, and it looks like the bid on this one, under salary requirements, it says $37,000 to start annually with a agreed upon 2% cost of living increase each year. So I would say with these, folks can take a look at them, but my recommendation would be to entertain a motion for the police chief to review the RFP bids and come back to the board with a recommendation.
Second.
All in favor? So you moved it, you seconded.
And Chuck seconded.
Okay. Yes. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. So, send that back to Susan. All right, we have the opening for the Public Works software bids. What's that?
Can I make a comment now on that?
I wouldn't,
No?
when you haven't looked at them.
Okay, so
If you're hoping you can quickly look at them and make a recommendation for tonight, I would say that's inappropriate. So public works software.
I think he's going in your office.
So the first one is, comes from Ryan Bundy from iWork Systems. And it appears the dollar amount is it looks like it's a multi-year contract, and it looks like the grand total due on year one would be $11,500, with the other annual amounts being $9,000. And it appears this is a 3-year contract. I believe that's correct.
That was by the town.
FedEx needs money on this one. This one looks like it's from People GIS and from Simply City Online Services from a Kevin Flanders. And let's see if we can find this one seems like it might be more complicated to figure out. Looks like, so I don't know if this is broken down into different modules, but there's, this looks like the first item that I have shows a total first year project cost of $19,500, and it looks like it, and under this it says under task, it's Simple City work orders, Simple City stormwater, and quick asset with editor, and as well as training. But total first year project cost looks to be $19,500, and it does not, at least in this section, I don't know if somebody else wants to take a look at this. In this section, it does not appear to break it down as a. Okay, it looks like the supporting documentation may do different tasks.
Chuck and Lori, did you want to see that?
I
Did you
did,
want to see that?
yeah.
Yeah, it only came this far. Okay, so it looks like it breaks down the different tasks within these, so there's no additional pricing in there, but it doesn't spell out whether or not that offers a multi-year contract, or if it's just the first year, from what I can tell. But it does include a bunch of samples in here, some of the services they offer. So.
The last page, it has task 1, task 2, task 3, and they're all in task 4.
Yeah, so all I could see was that year one cost.
It's 12,019, so best bet is to let Phil look them over and categorize them and see what.
I would absolutely entertain a motion for the Director of Public Works to review and evaluate the RFPs and come back to the board with a recommendation.
Point of order. The two bids that we've had are ones we already had prior to the RFQ being sent out. I can tell you that the Simply City one will be more expensive by a lot. So the iWorks one is the cheaper one. It would be better for me if you guys voted on it tonight, because I can walk a few over at it and let the difference in the process.
I think it's disingenuous to the RFP process to just open them up and make a decision. I don't think it looks good if you do that.
Fair enough.
So I would rather have your statement in writing after proper evaluation of them with a recommendation by the board. And put it on the next agenda? Absolutely. Okay, so we have the Sanborn Project Demolition Grant,
and we need to vote to accept this one. I believe this is in
This
this.
is secondary property,
Yes, for that demo, it's,
I assume it's demo of the science building.
right?
yes, we had to be the ones to apply for that.
Yeah, that's
No, no.
I know, I was
Secondary
a little
project.
concerned, so it's just the science.
No, no, science building.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, that, where the science building is where new buildings will be placed.
Yes.
Assuming the project moves forward.
Right.
So-
What are you doing with it? Sorry.
Let's.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is obviously the grant that the town, we had already previously voted on going forward to assist them with this grant. We're at the point now where they are looking to do the, this is considered demo 22-118, and this would be the demolition going forward of the science building.
And this was money that was applied for through the Invest NH
Correct.
program.
And we as a board had to sign off on it.
Yep.
Right.
And essentially, the town has to act as the pass-through
On
for this
behalf
grant.
of the developer and landowner who will do the demolition.
Correct.
Well, at least it shows that there's still some interest there, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's been quiet for a while, and they're not saying don't do it anymore, obviously they're waiting for this.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I would take a motion that authorize myself to sign the grant agreement for this section of demolition, listed as account number demo 22-118.
I think you,
Dollar amount in the, with a grant limitation of $500,000. They didn't break it down on how much this portion of it. It's just up to.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think you have to vote to accept the money at this point,
Oh,
because you
okay.
already voted to authorize you to
Oh,
sign
okay.
anything.
It's a vote to accept the grant.
Then we take a vote to accept the grant
To
funds.
accept the grant,
I'll second
please,
it.
please.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now
Was
we,
that seconded by Glenn?
Yes.
okay, so now I would take a motion to authorize me to sign the grant agreement on behalf of the Board of Selectmen as previously accepted.
Second.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So I will sign.
Don't forget the initials.
I did initially. I didn't think we were gonna have a problem with this, so I did initially. Okay. I'll give that back. Yeah.
Get across that way waving.
Okay, so board business. Any board business before we get to like correspondence? Yeah.
Just a note for the rest of the board that the contract for the PFAS remediation grant came in. Chris has signed it, and Susan has sent it off to them. And the next action will be for it to be placed on Governor and Council for its final approval. And that will happen sometime. The Governor and Council has one meeting in July, which we won't make.
Yeah.
But they have 2 meetings in August, so DES feels comfortable that they can get it onto one of those 2 calendars. So,
It'd be nice to get that going in the fall, wouldn't it?
well, that's the plan. As soon as it's signed by Governor and Council, we then can move forward with.
Will they notify you which agenda it gets onto? Or could you follow once?
I will find out.
And if the board is comfortable, I have no problem reaching out to our executive counsel for our district, Janet Stevens, as well as I can reach out to the governor's office, just to advocate for support of it.
Great.
Okay. Any other board business? Public comment number 2.
Hi, Lorraine Mastioli. I also live at 15 North Road in Kingston, New Hampshire. So the other property I spoke about earlier tonight, we inherited because my father died of bladder cancer. So this is a sticking point for me about requesting that we reconsider what we're looking at for chemicals in our town and what we're willing to spray. You just brought up your new board business about the PFAS situation here in town as well. I feel like we have a lot of different things going on, and we have the largest aquifer in the state of New Hampshire. And For us to not start taking action to protect that, especially where the aquifer feeds other towns that are also hurting for water, I think this is a huge opportunity for us to step up as citizens to start reconsidering how the winds need to change or the sails need to take on a new journey in terms of how we approach chemicals and the chemical use in our town. I also have a couple comments I'd like to make from earlier this evening, what I heard about for the Heritage and what they were talking about. That was news to me because obviously I was here for the chemical situation. I kept writing down comments to myself just so that I could bring this up. As you guys go forward in how we are managing our town with the new select board, I'm just kind of curious, how can a town with the plains as a huge draw for the beauty of this town not be budgeting for active fun events on a regular basis on the plains? Other than the Kingston days, I thought that was shocking. It sounds like things have been changing, and it's unfair for some former long-standing entities to now get caught up in the need for compliance if we're not having the Kingston days the same time that they benefited from the services that they were getting. So as a concerned taxpayer, I thought this was telling. I couldn't help but make this comment tonight, and it's probably rhetorical questions for you to ponder as you start to move forward with how you want to run the town. But why would anyone of authority in our town have to sign for an approval if it sounds like the answer is going to be no every time, due to the fact that there's no plan in their budget for any activity or entity to occur in the town? It almost seemed absurd to me to ask for anyone to sign off on something other than to make them aware, possibly. I'm just not sure. Do we not have any extra money in the general fund to support any in-town causes, especially when it's coming from one of our own entities in town that would like to do something positive? If the rules have changed here or the dates have changed, so why is there no foresight to assist proactively to transition the entities that already exist in the town based on any new rules that are being implemented? Sounds like there was lots of planning being done by others, and it's shocking to me how anyone can get anything done in the town if there's this much foresight and this many phone calls happening and we can't get answers in order for anyone to try to do anything in town. I've lived in Kingston for well over 20 years, and family has owned the house adjacent to the Superfund site since the Great Depression. So I'm speaking for the generations before me. Our great-great-grandparents, we found out through doing the inherited property that they actually lived here in town as well. So I was surprised how deep our roots actually go in the town. I'd like to see our town change on a positive note moving forward with trying to support much more fun activities on the plains than just a few that we might have had the foresight to plan for, and possibly give some ideas to you as you start the budget process, as you mentioned next month for 2024, that maybe we start planning for one event per month, 12 events per year, where some months maybe we don't have any, and other months that allows for maybe 2 to occur. Might be more realistic for the beautiful town that we do have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Busy night. Phil Coombs, Public Works Director. Just a couple things I wanted to follow up on. The vehicle that the rec department was requesting use of, we did get it running, got it jumped. It is going to require some mechanical attention beyond what we have in-house. So I didn't know where you wanted to pay for that from.
How much are we thinking?
Every idiot light on the dashboard is on.
Oh, that's a great indicator.
I think we sell it.
So Graham didn't get rid of that for no reason. as his command vehicle,
Well,
so.
in different times and different years, I would say, what can we do to make use of this? But I kind of preface that this whole authorizing recreation, the use of it, is that if it just requires a battery to get on the road, that's fine, but we do not have funds that we can just be dumping into cars that aren't a necessity. Yes, it would be great to have, and if we had it available, I would absolutely advocate, but just like I don't have extra money to subsidize a nonprofit right now, I don't think we have extra money to dump into a vehicle that's not a necessity. So I guess we would get to the point of
Selling it.
do we need to? I'd be hesitant to sell it yet because we may need to, if this position returns to full time, that position that vehicle was for returns to full time, we may need to take a look at it down the road. I would kind of like to just hold off on it for right now.
Is there any way to get an assessment of what it might cost? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, we utilize Durham Bus is where we get most of our outside mechanical work done, so we can certainly take it there just for an estimate.
Plug it in, give it a little look over and say, this is minimum what you're looking at, and you could be diving into other things. Just
Yeah, I'd hate to just write it off based on the fact that all the lights are on. I mean, if it happens to be a simple fix and it's, you know, I don't know. I just think it's worth doing at least that step before we want to.
Absolutely. I just,
okay.
I wanted to get some guidance on the matter.
What you're saying, because I agree, but I think that one more step so that we know what we're dealing with.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. I don't think we need an official vote, just consensus of the board, please. Just,
Absolutely.
see if you can get an estimate of where we think we may be on it.
Yep. Other item is Grace Daily Barn. We did some more invasive looking into the structure, and I've compiled a report that I have given to Glenn as he's the selectman's rep to both Heritage and the Museum Committee. I CC'd Ernie Landry, as he has been the representative that I've been dealing with throughout most of this project. I only laid out the conditions as they currently exist because, yet again, I think that's one that I need outside guidance on how we would like to proceed. The intent had always been for us to perform as much of the work as possible, if not all, with the exception of some specialty trade work. So, as Mr. Hart alluded to, we're running out of people at the moment. Have some people out with injuries and things like that. So that's a consideration on that. I have not done any estimates beyond just kind of back of the napkin estimates.
Yeah, and I mean, I walked over there and looked at it, and whatever has to be done does not look like it's going to be cheap.
It's not simple, it's not cheap. I mean, I appreciate the report that you did, Phil, and the fact that you sent it to me, you know, in advance. I just came in today, this afternoon. I did read it and went through it. The pictures are really helpful. As usual, the pictures speak a lot more than just the words. So, I mean, it's a good assessment of where we are, but it's clearly significant work. Yikes.
I think we need an opportunity, if you could get that report to Susan, forward into the, you know, so I think we all need some time to review it and digest it before we can even think about discussing what action and how we're going to pursue it.
I actually have, I printed it, so I have a hard copy to start with, and I can send it to you electronically.
Okay, sure.
Is there,
I'll send it to you, Susan.
You got it.
I'll do it as soon.
is there initially some grant money there?
Yeah, there is $20,000 moose plate grant.
He's gonna send it to me, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. You can have that.
So
That's what you would be starting with. I mean, if it's $100,000.
yeah, and I think the intention was to utilize the building reserve fund for the shortfall beyond that. But I think based on the initial report that was provided by the Preservation Alliance, I don't know what that guy was looking at, but it's worse than that, a lot worse than that.
Yeah,
so.
Unfortunately, as you know, and as some of us know around here, when you own an old building, you make certain guesstimates when you look at something, and until you open it up,
Just triple it.
you just don't know.
Yeah, and again, that is why I would like all the stakeholders present when we make these decisions, because what one person is willing to spend on a project versus the person with the purse strings are very different. So I think
I'm not a professional builder, but I know what expensive looks like when
and I don't want to scare everybody off. I mean, typically a lot of these, they look really bad, and that one is bad, but it's more time than anything else, you know.
And it could ultimately, starting to put some stuff together, turn into a warrant article at some point.
Yeah,
I mean,
that has been the precedent in the past, that when we're doing these major projects that are, I don't want to say elective, but, you know, worthy of notifying the public on the intent.
Yeah, I would absolutely want as much public input as possible, and obviously having Ernie Landry and all the other folks involved.
On behalf of the folks at the museum and the Heritage Commission, I will just put on the table that the contents of that barn are residing in a person's barn across the street, and it was intended to be temporary. That person gave permission and access to place the carriages in there with the expectation of a certain endpoint, and that is, we need to have a discussion with that person and with all the folks involved, because if it's going to be a warrant article thing and that building isn't going to be available to put things back into for the winter, we might need, or they might need to find another place for those carriages, because Mr. Doyle is going to need his barn back for the winter. So there are some things here that we just need to make sure get touched upon.
They can erect a 168 square foot or less shed without a permit.
You're gonna get whacked outside of the head for that one.
You're sitting way too close.
Told you, Potts.
Major or not, you're sitting way too close.
Jeez.
That's all I had.
All right.
Well, that's a mouthful. That was a lot.
Any other public comment? I'm sorry I didn't call on you before. I just wasn't sure if you were looking to speak in your capacity as budget committee member or Kingston Days coming in, and it wasn't really a debate opportunity for that, so.
It's okay. No, I was gonna just state that we are paying for details for Kingston Days.
I knew that.
So I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that we are paying for details for Kingston Days, and we aren't getting our whole money.
Duly noted. Okay, so I'm going to close public comment number 2, move on to correspondence, applications, purchase orders. It says facilities use application for Contra Dance Hall. I didn't see that.
Is it not in there?
I didn't see it in here.
Oh, they're gonna hold it in
Unless
here?
it's in.
Yeah. Did I get that?
I didn't see, no, it definitely wasn't in the.
Maybe I didn't print it out. Did you send it to me? Glenn, I didn't get it. Yeah.
I sent it to you electronically.
I apologize, I probably didn't print it out. You want
Can
me
you
to
give us a
go in?
rundown on it?
I will, but I'm going to recuse myself because.
Oh, okay.
You want me to go in?
Well, if you'd like to come right up to the table.
Because I put the application in, so.
Oh, okay.
Please speak into the microphone.
It says Contra Dance Hall? Contra Dancing.
At the town hall.
Okay, Glenn Koppelman, 108 Exeter Road, speaking as a private resident.
No.
I put a facility use application for this room for September 23rd for the evening, roughly 6 to 11, and that allows time for setup at the beginning and tear down at the end for a contra dance, which we've had in this hall for over 10 years prior to being shut down when the pandemic happened. You know, close contact with people and dancing was just not the right thing to do during the pandemic. So, but dances are now starting back up again in the area, and most groups that are doing it are doing it under a individual personal choice as to whether they are vaccinated and whether they're masked, and so it's left up to the individuals who participate at the dance. So now I have to tell you that I'm not a nonprofit. I'm a private citizen. I hire the musicians and the caller. It's done to live music and calling right here. They're up on the stage, the dancers are out here. I take care of taking down the tables, putting them back, doing all the sweeping, so I've discussed it with Phil already. He feels that in the past that has worked well, and he sees no need for custodial duties to take place, as long as we take care of it, as long as I take care of it. I spoke with Graham. Again, he said, we've never had fire detail, no need for it, he said, and I wish he was here to say that, because he told me verbally, I don't have anything in writing from him. And I have not heard back from Joel on the application, so I don't know if he would require police detail. There had never been police detail in the past, but I know we've had changes in town, so that could be a different story. We would be paying the hall rental fee, unless you choose to waive that, which
I wouldn't go down that road.
I probably shouldn't go down that road. There is an entry fee. When somebody comes to one of these things, they pay a fee, and all of that money then goes to pay whatever the take of the hall is that night. It goes to pay for the musicians and the caller. There's no profit made. There's no there are typically 50-ish people plus or minus that come to these things. So I mean, 50 people in this hall is not a lot, but.
Forgive my ignorance, just not.
What is contra dancing? It's kind of like square dancing, but it's done in different, it's done in opposing lines. So but it uses a lot of the same figures as square dancing. And it's done to Celtic music, jigs and reels and hornpipes. It's very aerobic, it's very energetic, it's very community friendly, it's very welcoming.
You guys have been coming for years to town hall, and if you're not proposing any changes, I don't see any reason why this can't go forward.
The only issue, I think, years ago, back in the day when I was on, and prior to the reconstruction downstairs, that a lot of with the dancing and the pounding on the floor, a lot of the residuals got through to the ceilings and got in some of the equipment downstairs, and that was a concern. Now obviously we've redone the downstairs.
So you don't have to pick up the ceiling tiles.
Yes, it was an issue before the renovations, and but since then, I don't think there has been an issue, at least not that I'm aware of. You'd have to ask the people downstairs, but.
Well, then again, same thing. You try it, see what happens. I mean, you know.
So my request on the form when you see it is for one date, which is September 23rd. It's a fourth Saturday. My expectation would be that if that one goes well, that we return to a monthly schedule, with the exception of, I think November we didn't do it because this hall gets used for staging for human services, and so we don't do it in the November time frame. We also used to take July off, so my expectation would be that it would be a monthly event with the exception of November and July.
You didn't take December off with the Christmas stuff?
No, but we moved it from the fourth Saturday to whatever the Saturday was that fell between Christmas and New Year's.
So I mean, obviously I'd want, as long as what you're explaining on the form is accurate, I would entertain a conditional approval just based off the sign off of the official signature sign off of the Public Works Director, the Fire Chief, and the Police Chief. Second? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
At least said no before, so.
I did not say no to this.
Thank you very much.
I didn't want to say no
I'll get
to
it
the other
signed.
one either, but.
Let you know.
So under correspondence, we have the New Hampshire DRA use of form PA 28. We do not use this form, so this is the DRA's just asking us to check off whether we will not be using PA 28 form in 2024 or will. So
It's an inventory. I think it's like, we have an assessor, so it's more like an inventory form where people would fill out what's on their property. The way I understand it, we've never used it, but they ask us every year.
So we're gonna say no again.
We're gonna say no
So
again.
I take a motion that we check off the box indicating that we will not be using the mentioned form and send that back to the DRA.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Another DRA.
Yeah, another DRA reimbursement for forest land. So this is the application for reimbursement to towns and cities in which federal and state forest land is situated.
We get reimbursed?
Apparently.
Yeah, it says value.
Eventually.
Yeah, it says number of acres per the DRED is 49.8, and the total assessed evaluation is 236,400. And then they mention a value per acre, but then that's calculated out by the department. So we're just submitting this.
Is that the state park?
It's conservation.
No, conservation. Yeah, it's pretty sure it's conservation.
It's for forest.
Oh, forest.
Yeah.
So that's part of our conserved land, but not all of it, right?
Correct. So I entertain a motion to sign the application for reimbursement to the towns and cities for the federal state forest land. So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
How do we find out how much conservation land we really do have? Because Chris, you asked that question a couple of
So
weeks
somebody
ago.
else didn't, I think. He gave an indication we were at
23%.
23% of the 25% target goal, and I forget what the actual acreage number
Rick
was.
Rustman has those numbers pretty much, and he did state it. He was the one who gave us that percentage.
Yeah.
But he never gives us with any definition. It's always, I think we're at 23. We never know how many acres. You know what I'm saying?
Well, he was speaking sort of for that group, the Friends of Kingston Open Space, which is the group that sort of spearheaded the conservation effort. He and Ernie Landry are two of the primary individuals, and two of them should be able to come up with that.
And I'm more curious than anything. If we have like 22 acres of land in the town of Kingston, am I correct about town?
You mean square miles?
Square miles, excuse me, yes.
It's roughly 20 square miles.
20 square
19 and
miles.
something.
And so what percentage of that is, we have easements, right? We have conservation easements, we have forest lands, we have, you know what I'm saying?
Well, there are,
I think it's
a
all combined.
category of protected or conserved lands, and there are a
Right.
couple of different things within that bucket.
Right.
I mean,
So
salt,
we
you got
include all
salt is one, and you got conservation easements, and you got conservation land itself, which thus combines all together would give you what the 23.
Yeah, because when you asked about it, I said, gee, I wonder how much we really do have.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if we were to reach out to,
Just ask for an official
just
report,
ask,
breakdown.
yeah, just ask something.
Exactly.
Yeah, Susan, maybe if you could do that,
I will do
I'm sure they can give that to us.
We do have another, we have an item in here, it's just, I don't like saying employee names out there, so we have an employee with the initial AF seeking unpaid leave request form, since they don't have a supervisory report to falls to the board, so this would affect our recording. So the effective days off are 7/31, 8/1, 8/7, 8/10. It looks like it affects one select board meeting, a planning board meeting, and a zoning board of adjustment. So I think we would just probably ask that we can set up provisions to get anyone that can get it set up for us to record those meetings.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But if the board's comfortable, I'll sign off on this. It's looking for supervisor's signature, so I guess I'll sign it as the chair, and then the rest of the board could sign it. Since he doesn't have a supervisor to report to. I'll just send this whole folder that way now. Some of it only needed mine, some of it is multiple signatures. We'll go through purchase orders.
What about the permit for the museum? I mean, they put in their permit that the fees were waived.
I hand wrote in the section that says approved or denied. I checked off the approved box, but I said waiver of fees
and detail costs denied.
Denied. So I didn't make sure it was included on there.
This one only has your signature, and it doesn't need ours.
Yes.
It's just yours.
No, I think those are all little individual lines that you would sign. What? Yeah.
Oh.
Spaced.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, you're not getting off.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's see, so this is for a turbo repair for the engine number 3. I believe this is one that the fire chief had discussed with us previously, so this is the purchase order to pay for that. This is Durham bus repair. Is this the one that was in limbo?
Yes, 11,000.
So, and where did we find we could take that from?
She's gonna take it out of the general fund, not of the general fund, I can think of the name, the one that's gonna be $80,000 in it.
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, it's mentioned in here, but I don't know what,
Yes.
I don't know what full 199 line item warrant is off the top of my head.
Suggested to
Shame
her
on
the
you,
other
Chris.
day that since it's been for May and we couldn't find it, we ought to get it paid.
Okay.
So,
We do have to get it paid, this
That's
repair
right.
was done, so.
Yeah.
And so Paula reviewed this line and
Yeah,
appropriate to be paying out of
it's
this?
usually been me for this.
Oh,
Just,
contingency.
The contingency.
We got 80,000 in there, we spent some of it.
All these other things, Chris's signature.
Okay, that's
Unless you find something different, the point was we had to get it paid.
This looks like 16 tires. This was by Chief Johnson, so this was obviously new tires for the cruiser. I know they have to keep a stockpile of some on hand so that they have some change out.
yes, you are.
Looks like it's accounted for in the budget, and they've documented the appropriate line items for it. Let's go to Sullivan Tire, and it's a total of $2,336. Why is there multiple copies of this?
What is that?
The
Oh, is it
tire-
the
tires.
Oh, I don't know.
Multiple tires, yeah. So, can I just cross out the second one? 'Cause it
They're
looks like the
identical,
same-
she might have
Yeah,
had
they're just
two
identical.
going.
I just don't want us paying them twice.
Some of those have Chris's signature, and that's all that was needed, but some of them have multiple.
Looks like we have paving. So this was the Bell and Flynn. This looks like the paving of Morning Dove Road, Robin Lane, Colby Road, Hemlock Road, Beaver Pond Road, Rams Way, Fieldstone Drive, Grandview Terrace, Pheasant Run, Redgate Drive, Willow Road, and Crawley Falls. The total appropriation for this order is $417,752, and this is obviously falls under the contract that we entered into for the paving of that, and we have documented the different line items that this is coming out of. Additional building needs, this is for the fire station, so this is coming from the chief. It looks like we have 4 TVs that are within the building, cables, 30-gallon steel flammable storage container, power strip towers, a 500-pound tube shelf service, and I don't know what a gift 28-pack heavy duty is, but it's $9.99. Looks like this coming out of the new building infrastructure fund. There's plenty of funds in here to accommodate these items. Let's see, this is payment for Block 5. This is additional fire station building needs, so training room, audio visual equipment, and installation of the equipment for the emergency operations centers. And just note the TVs on the quote are being purchased separately. That was from the previous purchase order. This is coming out of the building, the fire department building infrastructure fund. This is for the water tax. Is this the one we put on hold because we were waiting for some feedback on how we were getting double billed?
I can speak to that,
Okay.
yeah. I spoke to them today, and the gentleman was very good at explaining, it's just how they bill it. And because my house was just picked up by the town, even though they've been servicing it, the town just picked it up. It got thrown into the mix, and so it looked like the invoicing was off, but it's good to go. And I also told him that we were in the works of providing them a draft contract.
Yeah, so
Because
that
it's
was-
just
yeah,
easier if we do
Yeah,
it.
we definitely need to operate under it.
Right. And so, you know, and he was very kind in explaining how it was, you know, pretty much a gentleman's agreement prior to that. And I said, well, that's great, but moving forward, we need to have something in writing, so.
It works great until it doesn't work great.
Exactly.
Okay, so it looks like this is, this comes out of,
And remember, those were one of the ones that there was some unexpected overages on that
Yes,
whole thing,
yeah,
that's
this
why
one
we need
lines that
contracts.
will be, this particular line item will now put us
Yep.
$10,671.82 in the hole, which
Yep.
we had already discussed on some of the other budget overview items. So it pains me to do it, but yes.
Yep. But I appreciate it, and so do the
That's what separates us from third world countries, is the need to try to tap and get clean water.
No kidding.
Send that one down. We did have, just there is, if anyone wanted to take a look, this was the Souhegan Riverview Investments. This involves 255 Route 125. So it looks like this plans in case anyone wanted to review and give any departmental comments.
Do you know if Glenn Greenwood has talked to the attorneys about those two issues yet?
He has reached out to them, and I thought he was supposed to have an answer by the planning board meeting on next Tuesday. But I know he was very on top of reaching out to them immediately. So this is, I mean, this is kind of one of these things that it's always, I know it comes to the select board, but in case something glaring really comes up, you really kind of wait till the planning board's up.
What's the location?
And remind me again, which site is it?
255 and 125. So this is gonna be, I think this is that.
This is the rental truck,
No, this one is, this one's up here by the Marshall Road intersection I think this is on the Magnuson side.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so, let's see, 120, yeah,
And
so that would be, yeah, so it's gonna be across the street where the Magnuson farm is.
Oh, it's where,
Or is it
the
this
guy's garage is.
Oh, the
You
garage?
know,
Oh, okay.
Allied Water's behind it, and I
Oh,
can't think of
okay.
the kid's name, he's got the house in the garage right behind it.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And this is for what type of, some sort of vehicle, something, that's why there was a concern with them, right?
Looks like, I don't, unfortunately, we don't have any comments.
Is this the one that Glenn was asking about, the CJ and?
No, that's the leasing one, and that's, we got the legal opinion on that one for the planning board.
That was for the refrigerator trailer.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
that's what I was thinking.
The issue of the 1,000 feet separation.
And legal's interpretation of the ordinance as written is that it's prohibited due to the proximity to another similar business listed in the ordinance, but legal says that the language in the ordinance may be outdated, but the language that it currently exists is the language you have to go off of.
Going to the ZBA.
So that they can't hear what you're saying?
I think they'll have to be directed to the zoning board adjustment if they want it being prohibited.
Or on the website, perhaps.
Yeah.
Only because I've got conservation. and then
Okay.
they're reviewing that
Yep.
Thursday night,
Okay.
because it's something about that.
Yeah, so this is where there's that house out front, there's like that was like a garage workshop, but.
They're proposing a
Yeah, it looks like they're
building.
putting a new pole barn building.
Pole
in.
barn.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it would be considered part of a site plan review because it's a commercial business that exists there.
Right. And whether it's the same business or a different one,
To be determined?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Because it doesn't.
We don't have like a narrative overview of what's.
It doesn't, the plan itself doesn't say what the business is. It might indicate it in the notes, but without taking time to look at it.
So those would be on the planning office or the select board's office if you want to look at them. We need the approval of, leave those with the department comment sheets. Approval of meeting minutes from the June 26, 2023.
So move, public and non-public, I don't know if there was no non-public.
There was.
There was.
It was.
Yeah, really, it was really quick. The 26.
Yeah.
And
That was
just,
really quick.
and just it accidentally says July 26 on the top
Oh,
of
it
that
does.
meeting minutes. So
I
you-
did.
I like the way you put that.
It accidentally says it.
Yeah, it's just,
I
these
thought
are, these are meeting minutes from the future.
I printed it out when I changed it.
So that would be the only amendment I would offer to them.
Change date.
Correct the date, yeah.
Do we have a motion on that?
Yeah,
Oh,
both
you
public
have-
and non-public.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pick whichever one says it.
Okay.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
One abstention, Chuck.
Right. So just one thing, when by the time I got to the non-public minutes, that's when I was reminded about the question of the dogs. So it wasn't on your agenda, but I did get an answer from Primex if you want to consider that for the next meeting.
An answer that says nothing.
Or do we want to
Yeah.
do it?
Legal
I
business.
know, I was not happy with that answer at all.
Nothing you can hang your hat on there, it's just like,
It was
yeah,
ridiculous.
it's up to you.
Hey, you're on your own. Good luck.
So I guess we.
Good thing
Just points out that there are potential risks and
Yep,
do
figure
well.
it out.
Yeah.
But there's nothing says you can't, but if you want to, you can, or you can make it, I mean, it just.
So I think this is something I would like to bring up with department heads. Because because I don't want us to go and say, okay, yeah, we're gonna allow it townwide, and some departments like, yeah, that doesn't work for my department, I can't allow it in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. Some may be, I'm amenable to it, some may say, no, I have all these members of the public, and while I think it's okay for the public to bring in dogs, I don't want to open this up to my staff, so I think we should bring this up and get department head input. That would be my recommendation at our next meeting. Do we have a non-public?
I do.
Okay.
And
I have an issue to it.
And I didn't discuss it with you ahead of time, but I do.
Well, do we have anything more public to discuss before we move into a
The only
non-public?
thing I was gonna say, and maybe it's what you have in non-public, but based on your recent letter in reference to the
No.
library and recreation and that thing there.
Yeah.
Writing that stuff up, and I was thinking about that, and you know, it was kind of an informal thing that they set up, and they volunteered, and they're doing a hell of a lot of work with it, and they're getting a lot of involved, so I think follow up with your information is that I'm guessing the librarian is probably in charge, for lack of a better word, of organizing and that, so maybe we should have them in, see where they're going. Do we need to, do they need to be a formal committee? Do they need to be formal, or you know, we don't have it, we read it and they're doing a lot, but maybe.
Right, and remember that Melissa, the library's put together the grant to get the 3-season room, and that's kind of played into addressing some of the issues that have arisen to the community forum on aging population and what needs to be done. It's growing wicked big, but you raise some great points in terms of.
Yeah, so let me,
I was thinking of
No,
that.
it's great, because, so it started with me talking to Marissa, and then they're doing so much more, right? All of them are doing so much more, and without creating more bureaucracy, we have mixed space, we have different budgets. I mean, I feel like there's gonna be so many complications to it, that if we don't at least just
Figure out where it's going.
right, and so they were gonna have a meeting this week and they rescheduled it. So what we're talking about, the three of us, was let's raise all these questions and then bring it to the board and let the board decide what do we want to do with it moving forward. Like, here's our scope, here's where we see it. Like, we'll use the library for stuff, but if it's humans, like, who's in charge? It's just so informal that it can create
a Pandora's box of services that we're not able to fund, and I'm really concerned about that.
And we need to get that out to them, see where they're going, if they're looking for money, they,
Right.
you know, they
Yeah,
go
so-
through budget.
That's the thing. If they wanted to, because Marissa's expanding and stuff that she's doing, only because she's doing such a great job. More people are calling her for stuff.
And we don't want to discourage it, we just want to know
Exactly.
where
Yeah,
they're
we
going.
may just have to set up guide rails to say, hey,
Right, and
this is the box we're held in until we.
And
get
that
out
was
of
the whole
program.
thing, where if they're doing things and they need more money, and they don't have their own line item, right? Like, there's just so many questions.
Yeah.
That I was just like, we should all talk.
When do you think they could be ready to come in? So the other week, but would it be the next meeting or meeting after that?
It would
maybe?
probably be the meeting after that, because we all want to sit down and just kind of brainstorm. And, you know, Melissa's bound by a lot of library stuff, and she can't cross those lines, and terminology is really important, because you can't call the 3-season room a senior center, because it's not. Even though it's going to be the de facto senior center, like.
For 3 seasons.
For 3 seasons. What do we do with them for the other season?
The other season.
Contra dances.
That's it.
So-
Yeah, we dance.
Right, we dance. It's just, they're all doing great stuff, and,
Yeah, we don't wanna.
Okay.
we don't wanna discourage it.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the services you brought up are, I think, could be vital and crucial, but we just need it. We can't jump into providing things that we can't actually provide.
Yeah.
Whether it be funding,
Yeah.
staffing, those items.
Exactly.
All right, so yeah, just let us know when you think it's gonna be ready.
I will.
Just put it on the agenda,
Yeah.
and then we can have
Yep.
a discussion with everyone.
Yeah. I was kind of pushing to get it done, and Melissa's like, put the brakes on. I'm like,
Anything else before we move into non-public?
Let's bring that
Since you know what it's about, I'll let you make the motion with the appropriate.
So, I will make a motion that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, Roman 2C. And that's the section that could have possible repercussions or adverse effect on an individual.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that it doesn't, but it has the potential to, so that's why I want to.
Second that.
All right, take a roll call vote. Ellie?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
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 All right, we are in non-public, so we'll give you a moment to get settled.